Everyone, this is William Armstrong here. I'm going to explain a thing or two about the YouTuber named Once Were Nerd, an Italian-based YouTuber who talks about retro games and stuff like that. He unfortunately irresponsibly decided to get himself in trouble with the authorities in Italy with promoting the retro handheld consoles such as the Ambernick, Pal Kitty, and all of them. Well, this is the article. I'm going to read it. It's on Android Authority's website. Here's why that the embattled retro gaming YouTuber might not be so innocent. Several key incriminating details have emerged that tell a very different story than what he told. By Nick Fernandez. This was published by 9 hours ago. If you want to know the TLDR, if you want to hear the TLDR right here, you can hear it now and then not watch the video. But if you want to know more, you can keep watching. But here it is. It says your embattled retro gaming YouTuber Once Were Nerd left out key incriminating details in his initial video. Earlier videos uploaded to the channel linked to blog posts sharing ROM and BIOS downloads. Uh-oh. Okay, there's a Boost Mobile ad. He may have also sold consoles with ROMs on the secondhand market via Facebook. Creating emulation-focused content online is risky business since the entire industry is filled with legal gray areas. Italian YouTuber Once Were Nerd found out this the hard way with authorities seizing dozens of consoles and threatening jail time for sharing copyrighted content. While his initial response video proclaimed innocence, new details have come to light that tell a different story than what he is telling. I'm adding that part in than what he told. While the creator never explicitly shared ROMs, he may have played a little too fast and loose for his own good. In a video posted in January 2025, Once Were Nerd creator Francesco Salasini ran through the steps to set up a new emulation handheld, Monto Tech. While he clearly wants to avoid giving details on YouTube, he links to a blog post on his website with the text where to find ROMs in the description. The link to the blog post has since been removed, but it's still visible in the Wayback Machine translated below. Right there. So, as you can see, there's the BIOS package link to his website down there, and where to find ROMs down there on his Once Were stupid Boost Mobile ad. I'm all going to explain why, but notice he links the Amazon link, the short URL Asia link, or to another different product, but right there's the Amazon.it link to the product and the coupon code NERD5 and where to find ROMs down there on the site, and then BIOS package down below. Oops. Never do that. It's a big no-no. The blog post which is still live as of writing links to websites with ROM and BIOS downloads, both of which are protected by copyright. Post does include a disclaimer asking for readers to only download ROMs for games they legally own, but this is a very thin legal defense. The video also recommends buying a handheld that ships with a micro SD card filled with ROMs and copying those ROMs to your other gaming handhelds. The Boost Mobile ad keeps popping up. In addition to this, users on the Retro Achievements forums uncovered that he was auctioning the used handhelds on his Facebook page. These included the original microSD cards filled with games, which refutes his initial claims that he did not share a profit from the copyrighted material. Still, it's worth pointing out that all of these handhelds are readily available to buy on Amazon, handing down jail time to a YouTuber for a relatively minor offense while ignoring the retailers and middlemen who are actively profiting off of selling go away Boost ad. Selling copyrighted materials isn't a great precedent to set for content creators in the future. Okay, now having that said, that's exactly what my point is. My point is that Once Were Nerd shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have linked to any of that, as it's getting him into some hot water in Italy. And it might land him sometime in the slammer. Click, click, Ooh, time in the jail cell for it. Users on Retro Achievements have completely found out that he was auctioning off the used or the handhelds with the ROMs and the SD card on Facebook too. So his story of him being arrested for talking about retro handhelds, something doesn't add up. Something didn't add up there earlier this year in January. So something ain't adding up with that. Having that said, once we're a nerd, wah wah, wah 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 wah. Price is Right losing horn for you. You decided to go that far, and you decided to play too fast and too close for your own good. Now you got to suffer the consequences. Now you got to pay the price. Click, click, boom. That's my gesture for jail time. Click, click the handcuffs, and boom, the jail cell doors. Basically, once we're nerd is my opinion is once we're nerd is being held liable for it. But what about Amazon and the middlemen that are selling those retro handhelds? And what about the companies like Ambernick and all of them? What about them? They're the ones profiting off the sales of the consoles with the ROMs on them. They're profiting off of it. Ambernick, Powkitty, all these retro handheld console companies, they're the ones profiting off of it. And Amazon's the middleman where it's being sold on. That's the problem there. That the authorities aren't going after Amazon or the companies selling consoles with ROMs on them. Like they're not. They're just going after people like once were a nerd, the Italian YouTuber, instead of going after Amazon and the companies behind it. Now, take what I say with a grain of salt, but note that Ambernick and all those companies that make retro gaming handhelds with ROMs on them are not in the US, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, or Latin America. They're not in it. They're not there. They're obviously from China. I have nothing against the country of China. I have nothing against it. Nothing against anyone or anything that is Chinese or any of that. Nothing against it. It's just copyright and piracy do go hand in hand, meaning that Nintendo is anti-piracy, but Sony, they don't give a flying rat's you know what about that because Sony in the 90s tried to sue two companies. Bleem, the developers of the PlayStation 1 emulator Bleem, and they made a product called Bleemcast for the Dreamcast, which allowed you to play PS1 games emulated on Dreamcast, sadly. And Connectix Virtual Game Station, made by Connectix Inc., a company that was around in the early 90s, 2000, but the companies, both of them went into thin air after they did not have the financial money, the financial resources to back themselves up in court. They didn't have enough financial power to actually battle Sony's lawsuit filed against both companies. As a result, Bleem went under financially, and Connectix Inc. also went under after the lawsuit with Sony Computer Entertainment of America. And it also taught Sony Computer Entertainment America a powerful lesson on how not to sue someone making claims that they were doing piracy when it comes to find out that what the developers of Bleem and Connectix Virtual Game Station are doing were legal, but it backfired on Sony twice in a row. Nintendo themselves are strict on anti-piracy because as you may have noticed, the Switch 2 that came out in 2025, people are getting their Switch 2 systems bricked, as in they're getting them banned from the Nintendo online services when they get a used copy of a Nintendo Switch 2 game that might have been ripped and dumped by the previous owner and then resold on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, or any of the sort. And if Nintendo detects two copies of the same game being played, it gets flagged by Nintendo servers, and the next thing you know, the systems that played it on get permabanned. But it appears that people are able to reverse the ban with evidence and a trail of evidence that they didn't, I repeat, didn't pirate the Switch 2 game. It doesn't matter if it's the MiG Switch 2 flash or the MiG Switch flash card. It doesn't matter if it's the official Nintendo Switch 2 cartridge. It doesn't matter. Nintendo's able to detect the game that's been pirated from their end. Um, the MiG Switch flash card that came out a while back, it gained controversy for piracy too, but however, the Nintendo Switch first generation console, Nintendo Switch the first gen model, wasn't much of a problem with that, meaning that people could take the MiG Switch flash card, just pop it in their Nintendo Switch first gen model, and nothing happens. For the Switch 2, as soon as it's inserted into the console gets permabanned indefinitely, and things like that. Now, whoever came up with the MiG Switch cartridge is a complete idiot for doing that, knowing how Nintendo is very tight on anti-piracy and knowing how Nintendo shut down Ryujinx, Suyu, Yuzu, and Skyline. They shut down 4 Switch emulators, one after another, slowly over time, prior to the next version of the Nintendo Switch coming out. Like, I just think it's, I just think all of this is just annoying that flash carts, Nintendo doesn't like flash carts. They don't. Um, I've seen DKYG, known as Did You Know Gaming, talk about Nintendo DS piracy, and they've also mentioned about DS flash carts where Nintendo tried to block and go after companies that publish flash carts for the DS system through system updates, and also suing a French company that made flash carts for Nintendo DS. But that lawsuit with the French-based company that manufactured the flash cart backfired on Nintendo in that matter. But Nintendo is releasing system updates that will prevent R4DS, a flash cart, from running on any Nintendo 3DS system. Like, they release system updates that stop the flash carts, unauthorized carts, from running on there. Now, I know about flash carts because I've seen YouTube videos talk about flash carts. The DS flash carts are roughly the size of this Nintendo DS flash cart. Like, it's roughly the size of the DS flash cart right here. Like, the flash cart's the exact same size as this DS cart. It would have a micro SD card slot on one side where the micro SD card goes in, and it would go into the DS system like this, like that. This is a dead DSi used as a dummy prop, for example, but um, things like that. Also, there was also flash carts for. There's also the EverDrive 64 and the EverDrive for the Sega Mega Drive, like a flash cart or flash cartridge for the Sega Mega Drive Genesis system and for the N64 as well. I've seen. But that's pretty much all I have to say. That once we're a nerd, he gets a Price is Right losing horn and or the Super Mario Sunshine too bad game over noise. Wah 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 wah. He gets that noise for lying about how he is being in trouble for reviewing retro systems, but he basically lied and admitted that he was sharing links on his website where to find ROMs and BIOS files and links to an Amazon Italy page to buy the console. Like, basically he was sharing links on YouTube to that, which also is what caused the feds in Italy to go after him. It landed him on the radar of the feds in Italy. Spawnwave Media also talks about this too, but that's all I have to say. And I might sound like a hypocrite, I might, but I think that once where a nerd was sliding way too close to the law and not realizing that he broke the law by doing so and not thought about the risks of doing so. So see you next time. Bye bye.